What a race.
What a race.
Freaking Marco Bezzecchi. I've been a fan. Is he more than we thought he was, or is he just really lucky this year?
Well, you'd say after the sprint he was unlucky.
That's true.
After he went and hucked himself in the sprint for no good reason.
And he's done that twice now. He's yeeted himself twice in sprints.
It's looking that's looking a little immature. But he was fast. I mean, he was so fast in the race, right?
Yeah.
But I think at this point right now, looking back on it, the Aprilia is the best bike, bar none.
Right.
You
like
know?
they're definitely taking it on a level playing field. Like Iagora is really telling as to how good that Aprilia is. Right.
You had Bez right there, Martin right there, Iagura making great passes throughout the race. Raul was a little bit further back, but he still was up close. He was in the top 10.
Yeah. Well, and he was, for a long time in one of the practices, he was the fast guy in one of the practice sessions.
Yeah. It's because for the first 2 rounds, right, we had weird conditions. We had weird tires. We had tons of heat. And you thought, well, maybe this is an outlier, and that's why the Aprilia is doing so well. It came to a truly Ducati track and dominated.
Right. And if we look at, we gotta throw some love at Didja. Outriding Marquez consistently on the same bike. And yeah, Ducati's just struggling. I think it's telling to a motorcycle if all of the riders are performing relatively the same, right? The bad example of that is all the Yamaha riders are at the very, what are they, like a full second off the pace.
Oh, it's so sad to watch.
But like, it doesn't matter if you're Quartararo or Top Rack. Yeah. The Yamaha's performing consistently. What we're seeing now is the KTMs are starting to catch up to Acosta. He's doing much better. All the Aprilias seem to be consistent, and all the Ducatis seem to be consistent. Honda is the only one that seems to be a little bit more spread across the field.
Yeah, and it's still kind of a wild card. So maybe let's go through by manufacturer really quick for the weekend.
Fun. Yeah.
I think it's easy to start with the Aprilias. I thought Martin's sprint win was brilliant on his part.
With the exception of him crashing in his celebratory lap.
So what's funny about that, I watched a little post race with him talking about this instinct. Somebody brought it up, right? And basically these bikes have such intrusive wheelie control in the lower gears that as he's trying to do a celebratory wheelie on the back straight, they oftentimes have to click up to like 3rd gear before they can finally get the bike stood up to do a wheelie properly. And as he's going, he's clicking up gears. And at 3rd gear and then 4th gear, he's still hovering like, 8 inches off the ground. And he even said in the interview, he goes, as soon as I could tell I couldn't get the wheelie all the way up, even in 4th gear, he's like, I'm going to crash. Because that front wheel's going 45 miles an hour and the bike is now going 130.
Right. It's like an airplane landing, right?
Yeah.
He's like, you can see the smoke come off the front tire.
Like, I'm going to crash as soon as this front touches, I'm going down. So pretty unfortunate. But what I thought was funny is I think as spectators, people who own bikes and have to repair their own bikes, you see a crash like that, and you're like, oh my God, the team must be so mad at him. They could not care less.
Right.
They will gladly replace bodywork if it means they get to take a win.
I did see another post on Instagram confirming maybe it's the internet. They wouldn't let you put it on the internet if it wasn't true.
Yeah.
That Pecco has signed with Aprilia. Martin has to be kicking himself.
Bez was brilliant. Other than his stupid crash in the sprint, which he seems to like need to get one out of his system.
Right. Start doing those crashes in practice.
It's embarrassing. Like he would be running away with the championship.
Right. What did they say? He gave up something like 30 points.
Yeah.
And he wouldn't be leading by 4 points. He would be leading by 34 points.
Yeah, because there's 24. The 2 sprints would be 12 points each. There's 24 points he's given away.
Yeah.
He needs to tidy that up because that's not. He isn't going to be able to win a championship by doing that.
Right.
Right. Martin's going to be too close, or Mark is going to get it together and be too close. Like someone's going to be too close to just crash out of the sprints all the time. But that Aprilia looks to be in my mind at this point now, it's unquestionably the best bike on the grid.
I'm gonna call it. I think you and I are right that it is Meredith effect. I don't know if you're paying attention when they hit the straightaways.
It's a rocket ship.
It walks away from everything. Like it is pulling, and like the KTM for the longest time was the highest top speed. I don't know if you noticed today, he was pulling a Costa on the downhills on those straightaways.
There is something when they get into the upper gears and the speed, and then basically the drag really becomes a factor. All of a sudden, it's like they hit another gear and they accelerate past everybody else.
It goes. Yeah.
So there is something, if it's the merit of the fact and it's something to do with a significant drag reduction system, whatever they're doing, it is making a massive difference. And COTA showed that off like crazy.
Right. It was hard to miss.
Yeah. But I think that bike looks great. I thought during the race, the Trackhouse bikes looked beautiful. I loved the...
Oh, really?
I like this...
It was a little much for me.
But it's Texas.
Yeah.
Everything's a little much in Texas.
It's true. It was true. Yeah.
And I sort of love the because it's the only American team, and the sort of over the topness of the stars and stripes. It just felt so Texas to me.
Right.
And so in that context, if they ran that all season, it would be a little obnoxious, but it's Texas, man. Go all out. Go for it, you know?
Right. Right. Not to get too sidetracked on like special edition liveries, the VR46 livery I thought was ridiculous. There was just too much going on there.
Nope, I loved it.
I figured you would. I knew you would love it because it's reminiscent of how your motorcycle is painted now.
Yeah, the graffiti art.
Yeah, the graffiti art. And I was like, oh, that's a lot going on. That's just, even Mrs. Canyon Chaser was like, oh, that's a choice.
Yeah.
But maybe let's talk about Ducati next.
Well, so Ducati, Mark, so I guess let's talk about the crash in the sprint race, right? Because that's probably a fairly big talking point.
Yeah, that was a freaking... He's been making that mistake more often lately. I'm going to try to come up late on the brakes and take someone else out.
It's such a rookie thing.
Yeah. But he's been doing it more lately. This is not the first time we've talked about him doing that to somebody else this season, and we're on the third round.
I don't want to say I'm quick to defend Mark on his behavior. I understand a bit more what's going on with some of the racers of like, oh, I see why you tried that and it didn't pan out or whatever. But this is the type of maneuver that anti-Marquez people remember.
Yeah.
This is exactly the thing that pisses people off, frankly. And I totally agree, and I get it. Like, you can't go into a race, get past, and be clearly off the pace. He was not on the pace to be fighting for the places he was fighting for. He was just pushing and taking a bunch of risk. Digia's pass on him earlier in that lap was beautiful.
Oh, it was like textbook.
That was a beautiful pass. It was late and it was close, but it was a beautiful pass.
Yeah, no contact. He stayed out of his way.
Zero issues.
Yeah, it was exceptional.
Yeah.
Well, and apparently, if Digia is known for being one of the more affable, friendly guys, and I guess even that put him in a very foul mood.
Oh, yeah.
And I kind of think rightly so.
Yeah.
But on the flip side, since we're talking about penalties, there was plenty of penalties to go around.
Yeah.
I thought the penalty on Bez was a little heavy-handed. Mm-hmm. I look at it from like, I'm Bez, I'm coming into a corner. Was it Mir? No, it wasn't Mir. It was Marini. Marini was, this guy's going slow. I slow way down because the dude in front of me is going really slow. Like, do I think about getting way off the line, or am I just reacting to the dude in front of me who's going really, really slow? Mm-hmm. Like, the penalty for Marini was warranted. I thought the penalty for Bez was a little heavy-handed.
So I look at it different. I think they both should have gotten penalized. So they both got penalized, which I agreed with. The reality is you are in the 15-minute qualifying session. And if you are not on it, if you are not hammering through every single corner on a hot lap, get out of the way because somebody else is.
I mean, I agree with that fundamentally. I guess if, hindsight 2020, and this is what a podcast is for, so we can armchair expert it from give Marini two grid position penalty, maybe only give Bez a one position
and
penalty.
I think I would be more willing to give Bez a pass if he was surprised by Marini, but they were both, he was following Marini. It wasn't like Bez was on a hot lap and then he also caught Marini and got held up.
Oh, it kind of looked like that to me. Maybe I wasn't paying as much attention.
Oh no, they were both kind of dawdling, and it would have been fine. There was about 6 feet of track to the outside of Bez. And had he been...
there was definitely room to the outside.
Yeah, had he been 6 feet over and given a lane to Mark, even at the pace he's at, it's like, No, you gave Mark plenty of room.
What was the bigger foul to me was they both went for the apex.
Yes.
Right? And it's like slowing down was one thing, but it was like going into the apex was really where the problem
you've got to stay wide and give everybody a lane if you're going to be...
Like, that's what I would have done. I would have been like, oh, stay off the apex or run half the inside half of the track, so I'm really easy to get around.
Yeah.
And Marini certainly has, you know, if you're going, it's a 15-minute qualifying session.
Yeah.
Fair argument.
So I'm fine with the penalties. I also totally agree with Mark's penalty. In fact, I would have been fine had they made Mark's penalty even stricter than it was.
It was what it was because it was his first offense.
But it's only...
was it really?
His first offense? Like,
right.
So
yeah.
I think I appreciated that Mark in an interview later said, yes, I made a mistake, so a penalty makes sense. He didn't argue with the penalty. I was a little annoyed. I thought he could have handled his apology to Digia better.
Yeah, I agree.
So he apologized to Digia, and then in the conversation you saw, they kind of bumped into each other basically to press whatever thing. And he was trying to explain like, oh, well, the arrow, and I got, I didn't see, and da-da-da. And it's like, just say, my bad. I made a terrible mistake. I'm so sorry I ruined your race.
Right.
All my fault, dude. My bad.
Like, you have to have these rules. It always irritates me when someone throws a little temper tantrum when they get penalized.
Yep.
Even Mark got kind of penalized for doing sort of the same thing, and he kind of was like, he shook his hand at the judge's stand in the thing, but that was all you saw of it.
I actually will give a pass to most of the sort of like gesticulation that happens on track. Because when those guys are racing and they put the helmet on, they are not the same person.
Right.
They're out for blood. They're like, this is a war for them.
This is what we pay them to do.
And so when that helmet's on and they wave hands at each other and they're mad at each other, they're mad at the officials or whatever, kind of put that aside because that's not really them. That's a different version of it.
You don't really have any other way to communicate. And so that's your only communication tool.
So I don't get too bothered about those sorts of things that they do when they're... And, when you see the Italians and the Spanish guys who are a bit more emotional in general.
I get teased all the time, like I'm using too many.
Yeah.
It's, what's the joke, right? Like, how do you make an Italian stop talking? Tie down their hands.
So I think the bigger takeaway, though, is I was impressed that he was able to claw his way back to fifth. Mark Marquez in the GP. Yeah. That was impressive considering a long lap.
It was excellent riding. It was...
And all the other,
Did you notice, speaking of Mark, normally I really love his COTA helmet replica, that cream white with the... But did you notice in the big GP, he didn't have the little wing on the back of his helmet?
I didn't catch that.
It was white. It's like either it came off or they pulled it off. For the little wing on the back of his Shoei was missing for the race.
Interesting. I wonder if there's a reason for that. I haven't looked into this yet.
I was curious if maybe you had any insight or if it came off during the race. I don't know.
We are shooting this an hour after watching the race. Right. So
unfortunately you're going to get this a day late, which we'll talk about why. Yeah. So if you're sad you're watching this on Thursday, not Wednesday like normal.
We'll explain why.
So don't go anywhere just yet.
It'll be worth it.
Totally worth it. Yeah. Actually, if you read the title, you know it's coming.
So I thought Bagnaia finished 6th behind Mark.
It was great to see a more consistent Pecco. At least he was outperforming his performance.
To me, if I'm Aprilia and I'm watching Martin crush it, and I just signed Pecco for 4 years, I'm like, oh, did I just sign actually kind of a middling rider?
But we don't know if anything's actually been signed yet. I don't know if you know. I don't know for certain. I'm just reading rumors on the internet. So, nothing official that I've seen.
We'll take a little detour here and talk about the contracts really quick. So right now, the contract situation is Martin has signed with Yamaha for 2 years.
So Martin has officially signed.
Quartararo signed for Honda for 2 years. Bagnaia has signed for Yamaha for 2+2, so 2 years with an option for 2 more years. Mark has already signed for Ducati. Acosta's already signed for Ducati. Am I missing? I think those are the main ones. Those are the big ones. Bez has already signed, but that's official. Why haven't we heard about this? Why aren't these announced? Why aren't they official contracts? The race did a great job, and kudos to them. If you don't follow the Race MotoGP channel, you should. They do a great job. They did a bit talking about this, and it makes perfect sense. Right now, Dorna or MotoGP Entertainment Sports Group,
Smeg,
something like that. Yeah. MotoGP Entertainment Sports Group, something like that. It used to be Dorna.
Yeah,
they and the manufacturers are now in a gridlock right now, because in Formula One, there is this Concord agreement where they, by collective bargaining, all of the manufacturers and teams have a certain dollar figure that they get of TV money, all the other monies that come in for the series, they get a certain percentage of it,
right?
Because they effectively unionized when they bargained. MotoGP has tried to organize that same way. They have Lynn Jarvis and a few other folks that are trying to help them not just go one at a time and kind of beg with Dorna. Dorna is pushing back hard against this. They do not want to do this. They want the money. Of course they do. But basically what's happened right now is all of the teams, because of this gridlock of agreeing on a new contract, all of the teams are like, fine, I'm not signing. I won't sign for next year. Good luck racing without me. And all of the teams are like locked arms in arms. And they're all saying, we're not signing until you do a Concord agreement with us. So we all get a cut of the money that we're helping you make. So that's why you're not seeing any of the riders. Because how can I sign Martin for 2 years when I haven't even signed a contract with the series for the next 2 years? So right now they're using this as leverage. And
more drama on the way.
If we were, what's the Formula One Drive to Survive?
Right.
If we had a Ride to Survive series right now, next year's series, this will be front and center.
From what I understand, it's in production.
Liberty's got to be working on it, right?
I'm almost certain that I could have swore I read it, and I'm not remembering it now because but that was a big part of the whole Liberty Media coming, was that we were going to get a Ride to Survive series.
If this is not in production, Netflix, I don't have a membership, and I'm not getting one until you do a Ride to Survive.
That's right. I'm not paying for Netflix either, by the way. But if Ride to Survive were to pop up,
suddenly I'm in.
Yeah.
But anyway, this is why you haven't heard any contract get announced yet. It's why there's this just gridlock, and we haven't heard anything.
Because, my gosh, if Martin hasn't signed, you could see him doing whatever he could to stick around with Aprilia. But I don't know if Aprilia
wants him.
I think they would now. I think a lot would be forgiven on last year's behavior, because right now, it was almost a 1-2-3 Aprilia if the transmission thing didn't happen to poor Ayagura.
There's a common saying in business: revenue solves a lot of problems. Right.
Yeah.
In MotoGP, wins solve a lot of problems.
Yeah. Yeah. So. Well, it's really fun, and it seems like Bez and Martin get along well, which makes it fun. That's there was a lot of congratulations and laughing every time they're heading to the podium together. Yeah. So, yeah.
Yes, next year's gonna be pretty boring for him. That. Sitting at the back of the grid on the Yamaha.
Totally. Unless Yamaha can do something. I don't know.
So let's move on down the list. So let's talk about Honda really quick.
Freaking bad luck, Mir.
I don't think it's even bad luck anymore.
It's like...
Mir, stop falling down.
Holy cow. The poor guy.
You know you're allowed to see the checkered, right?
You don't have to bin it.
Yeah. It's too bad because I don't know if I'm a Mir fan, but I like Mir a lot. I've always liked him ever since the Suzuki days.
I agree. Yeah, I've always been
I really want to see him do well, because he's sort of got kind of an underdogness about him, but he also tries so dang hard.
Right.
And then you watch him and you're like, in the sprint I was watching, it's like, oh my God.
Right there. Yeah.
This is going to finally happen. And the last lap he goes and tosses it. It's like, guy, you got to stop. Finish a race. So anyway, Mir's super disappointing. Luca Marini doesn't feel special right now to me. He feels pretty middling.
I still contest Luca Marini's probably the best development rider out there. That doesn't make him the best racer.
Which is probably what we're seeing.
Yeah.
Diogo Moreira is still doing great as a rookie.
I completely agree. We saw a lot of him last round. We didn't see much of him this round, but
But he was right there.
He was right there.
Behind Marini for a lot of the race.
Yeah. Keep an eye on that kid. I think we're going to see more of him.
He's talented.
Yeah. And like, not to jump to KTM, but like Acosta is really showing the Acosta we've been wanting to see.
Oh, man.
What he's doing
to KTM.
on that KTM is so incredible. And he's been overshadowed by Bez getting like leading more consecutive MotoGP laps in the history of the world. You know, we're all excited about that. Well, like 120 consecutive race lap leads more than anybody. But Acosta now is tied with Colin Edwards for the most podiums without a win.
Is he really? I didn't know that.
Yeah, Colin Edwards and him are now tied at 12 for the most podiums.
What a terrible record to keep.
Without a win.
Nobody wants that
but
record.
Like, I think I think Acosta's talent's there. It's the bike is, you know, I think he's literally riding the wheels off that bike, as evidenced by another cracked rim or tire pressure.
Yeah, well, Bastianini was there all weekend, though, too. He was not far off.
I don't know what to think of that, because Bastianini is like, is he just in a good mood?
He's the most hot and cold.
Like, did he just have a good dinner the night before? Maybe he had a Red Bull before the ride. I don't know.
Whatever girlfriend he keeps in America, they get along great.
Well, it seemed like it was a different girlfriend. He was hugging someone different. I'm like, well, she's pretty.
Yeah.
Is that why?
It's just, he's the worst barometer. I don't think you could tell anything by whatever Bez does.
I don't really pay any attention. I really don't pay attention to Bastianini. To me, he's...
I feel bad for Binder. I think Binder's got to be on his way out of GP at this point.
Which is unfortunate. Again, I think he's super talented, but...
You just can't figure it out.
Well, and I think he's locked into a bike that maybe just doesn't gel with him anymore. Or
I still think he's stuck. I think it's the Michelin rear tire he just has never gotten on board with.
Well, hopefully we can see next year what he does on an Aprilia.
I'm assuming he has a ride.
I hope he has a ride next year. I like Brad.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think about Brad very similar, not quite with the level of affection I think of Miller, but kind of in that same vein of just like hardworking, down to earth, good-natured, talented rider.
There's a great documentary that I think Red Bull did it some years back about the Binders, the brothers. It was Darren and Brad.
Right. We only saw Darren in MotoGP for like a year.
1 year. In the documentary, they interviewed their dad. Speaking English, they had to put subtitles on screen.
Oh, because it's South African?
Because his accent's so thick. But what was so funny was he's telling a story about traversing South Africa on a bike as a kid, younger. And he has a weird crash and crashes on the side of the road. Broken leg, like badly broken leg. And then he's going on and on about he basically lied in a ditch for 2 days. Nobody came by at all for 2 straight.
In the middle of South Africa, right?
And he finally was like, I guess I got to get myself out of here, and drug himself back. And he and a bike pushed their way back. It was this for another 2 days. And it was this
it was like a freaking movie.
Oh,
like
it was this
gauntlet movie.
And he's just telling it like you and I are talking right now.
Oh yeah, and then I need to see that. I want to see.
It's great, and so you're sort of like, oh, this is just a hard people. These are just hard people. So anyway, side note, but I think I don't know if the KTM is actually getting any better or if Acosta is just Acosta and Bastianini decided to show up.
Yeah,
Yeah. Maverick sat out for the round because he's got a screw that has worked loose from
right. So hopefully we'll see him. That should be a quick recovery, I hope.
I don't think that'll be a terrible one.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I think the KTM's getting closer, and then the Yamaha, the less said, the better, frankly. They're not even close. I would love to have a silver lining for them, but it's looking like a long uphill battle.
Second off the pace.
It's not good.
With Quartararo piloting.
In terms of technology, the one thing that was kind of interesting that we saw in MotoGP this round was Ducati rolled out some new
Aprilia inspired
tail arrow. So they've got little seat wings now, like Aprilia has had and Honda has had for a while.
And the car's wing,
the little wing on the tail is more of a spoiler style now.
Honda Civic wing on the back.
Yeah. But they all ran it and they seemed to like it. So it seems like it's worked.
Bez ran without it and it didn't seem to make that much of a difference.
So we were at the watch party before this, and I was sitting with some folks and they were like, well, those tail wings must not make much difference because he smashed them off on lap 1 and he's been fine ever since. So yeah, maybe they don't make.
I don't know. I think it's their Meredith wings. It's just like, I don't know. Like that Aprilia is, it's just like, again, we've talked about this before, and I'm sorry if I'm going down this again, but Aprilia is so itty bitty, teeny tiny
company.
And to see them going against the Goliaths of the sport is, I mean,
it's fun.
It's incredible. Aprilia is so tiny. They make KTM seem massive. And it's...
If you're not an Aprilia fan, you should be an Aprilia fan by now.
Yeah, like, it is so cool. If you like underdog stories, this Aprilia season is really satisfying.
Yeah, I would agree.
Yeah.
Any other MotoGP news?
I think we covered MotoGP, especially since you're going to be getting this a day late. It's probably already been talked through.
I do want to cover one more thing about the round.
Okay.
This was the first round of the World Bagger Championship.
Oh, I didn't watch it. You did.
Go back and watch it. So let me rephrase this.
I shared some things on my Instagram that actually you shared with me. Negative offset triple clamps. And a swing arm that looks like it is made out of lattice.
Gorgeous.
It's really pretty.
All right. So it is easy to rag on these Harley-Davidson bagger bikes, right? As a MotoGP fanatic or whatever.
I've seen them in real life. You've seen them in real life.
These things are gorgeous.
They really are. If you like billet aluminum, bespoke, artisan, handcrafted. These are special. Yeah, it's nothing but. They're really pretty. It's nothing like my dad's Harley. We'll just say that.
They make normally when you look at triple clamps, so how the forks are mounted to the frame, basically, you have the steering stem, and then there's an offset, meaning the forks are offset forward of the center line of the steering stem. Usually it's like 25 to 35 millimeters, somewhere in that window.
And it's a weird relationship because the more offset, the less trail. The less offset, the more trail. Yes. So it's this really complicated relationship. It's not like rake. It's weird.
So
but typically they're in front of the steering stem.
Yeah. So normally you'd have the steering stem and then
look at your motorcycle at home. Look at the steering stem. Look where the fork tubes are. They're going to be in front. Yep. That's your offset.
Now these Harleys, however, there's the steering stem and then the forks are actually, it looks like the triple clamps put on backward. It's like melted.
By a lot.
By a significant number,
like
20 to 30 mil or more. I'm not even sure.
It's huge.
The forks are set back toward you versus the steering stem, which is a really odd looking triple clamp.
It doesn't look right. Like you said, it looks like they put it together backwards.
But because my guess is the normal frame and stuff with the rake angle of those forks.
Yeah, they have to have so much trail.
They have too much trail.
Yeah.
So they have to pull back a lot of the trail to get these things to handle.
It's just like...
They look goofy.
It's incredible.
But anyway, that I think is really interesting. I also was thinking about this too. I imagine some of the other benefit is, so these
short wheelbase.
Well, shorter wheelbase, but also shifting the weight bias to the front.
It would, right.
Because it pulls the front wheel in, so the weight bias is more forward.
I think the other thing, they're probably solving this, but... Back in my day, when I was a kid, when we were all playing with this, it was not uncommon for fenders and wheels to rub radiators. Right. So if they're running negative offset, sucking that whole front end towards the front jug of the motor, because the forks, they're going to bend under braking. Mm-hmm. Like they got to be like, the tolerances have to be so tight up in there.
Well, fortunately, these things have no radiator. Because they're air-cooled engines.
But the motor's hanging out the front of
the swing arm in these things, it's nothing like stock.
They're pretty.
Where the shock is mounted is different. Everything about them is different. They're carved from billet works of art. They're gorgeous.
They are so stunning. The craftsmanship. If nothing else, the craftsmanship.
They're a beautiful little piece of kit.
And these things are not putting out like insignificant amounts of power. And so you look at like this delicate little thing and you're like, how is it not just folding in on itself?
They shared some numbers from these. So again, these are air-cooled American pushrod V-twins.
Yeah, but they're close to 2,000 cc's.
How much torque do you think these things put out?
150.
167 foot-pounds
That's
of
so
torque.
much torque. That's more than the average car.
167?
Nuts.
What type of chain are you running?
And then you look at the swing arm, this like steel lattice. It looks like a doily made out of aluminum.
Yeah.
Only with fewer little flowers in between the things. And it's going to crank, like it can hold 170 foot-pounds of torque. I don't even know what that is in newtons of torque, or is it
over 200?
Yeah, like it's bonkers.
It's a ton of torque. So anyway, crazy technology on these things. The other thing I thought was fascinating that they showed, so because the way the bike, the weight bias is so far to the rear, so they're still heavy. They're like 650 pounds. Right. They're not a little bike.
And they have to raise them to the moon so they can make them around corners. And then like the dude's my size, like Kyle Wyman is my size. Maybe he's an inch taller. That seat has to be
sky high,
36 inches, you know, and he maybe has a 30-inch inseam, you know, 600-pound motorcycle that, you know, do they have to like hold them up and like roll them off?
Little training wheels.
You know?
Because there's so much weight on the rear tire, they run a massive rear brake rotor.
Yeah, they look like a car brake rotor. They're gargantuan. They're even like the double wide, like a car.
It's a full floating rotor. It's a 320.
Oh my gosh!
Do you know what's on the front of your bike, Dave?
Probably a 320. Yeah, only it's half the thickness because it's out in the wind. Yeah.
So they run a 320 millimeter brake rotor on the rear just because they can use the rear brake so much.
Yeah, because well, that's the thing with cruisers, right? We talk about this in a lot of the videos that I make. You know, like, oh, you know, we rely on the front brake. Can you trail brake with the rear brake? The answer always depends, because if you're on a little short wheelbase light motorcycle, almost all your braking's going to be on the front. Mm-hmm. But if you're on a long, low cruiser, you have a lot more to work with from the rear. That's evidenced. Again, racing shows us everything. Yeah. You know, these baggers are using these gargantuan, big, massive rear rotors.
So the bikes are proper little pieces of kit. They are... What's interesting is this World Bagger Series, it's a spec series. So everyone has the exact same bike. There's no custom whatever.
Oh, so we're not bouncing between the Indians and the Harleys this year out
all
there?
All just the same spec Harley, which is actually kind of nice. It makes the racing a little closer. They're proper bikes. What was cool to watch and listen to was the speed at which these guys get it from side to side when they flick from through the S's especially.
Right. I'm always floored by that.
I was on these big bikes, and it looked when they were going through the S's, the curbing, I thought they were going to hit the fairing on the curbing. They're so leaned over. And then the noise that these things make. I love MotoGP. I love sport bikes. There is something about a big, giant, old American V-twin.
They do sound cool.
Man, they sound good.
I've said it before, and I'll say it again. They really need to have the radios going on those baggers, though.
Yeah, that is one. They really,
it's just like, if you've ever ridden a motorcycle in America and you show up like at any national park, you know, they say Rolling Thunder, long before you hear the pipes, you hear everybody listening to whatever rock, you know, Steppenwolf, Grateful Dead. You can hear the tinny noise from their crappy little speakers cranked up to 11 long before they arrive at the parking lot. So why are they not running the speakers out there?
I thought those engines sounded, they really kind of put to shame like the Moto3 and the Moto2 bikes especially.
Oh, yeah.
Just the roar of those engines sound pretty dang
They're
good.
Throaty and deep. It's a nice sound.
Yeah. So anyway, as much as it's easy to tease and make fun of this bagger series, I had a good time. It's a bit of a novelty, so I don't know if the novelty is going to wear off pretty quick, but I had a good time watching the races. I thought
racing's
it was fun.
Racing, you know, like we giggled and laughed and enjoyed every minute of the tuk-tuk race.
Yeah.
So,
I was speaking with Jerry a little bit ago about this. He's very like eyes rolled about the bagger series. And I was like, imagine, as the analogy here is, there's the Tour de France. It is the pinnacle of riders, the pinnacle of technology and bikes, and they're phenomenal. Everything about it is just the absolute razor's edge of what's even possible. The bagger series is coming back down Alpe d'Huez with a bunch of hipsters on fixies. It is not at all the fastest thing. It's not the most technological thing. It's not the most impressive skill thing. but man, is it kind of fun to watch. That's the Bagger series.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
So anyway, I enjoyed them. I think they're a great replacement for the Moto E series, which was never very entertaining.
I mean, I wanted the Moto E series to catch on because I think there's more to be learned there. But it's
same.
Yeah.
I really thought I tried to watch a few rounds and I was like, I just can't get into this.
It was really boring.
Yeah.
I tried really hard too, but it was
beggars win, I guess.
Yeah, at least for now. At least until the next, until the next thing.
So because we're releasing on Thursday, Dave, you want to talk about that?
Yeah, so the reason why we're releasing on Thursday is this gets us past the embargo on the Yamaha R7, the 2026 Yamaha R7. I was lucky enough. Yamaha invited me out to San Diego for the press launch on the brand new. And you might be thinking, because I was thinking, it's just another R7. It's just going to be new bodywork.
Bold new graphics.
Bold new graphics. BNG, as we like to say in the biz. And I was floored to learn. We kind of alluded to this last week. The only thing on the R7 that did not change is the aluminum bit of the motor in the middle. Even stuff bolted to the motor has changed. It is a completely new motorcycle. And I thought it would be fun to, there's going to be, I hope to get it out maybe on the same day. It might be coming out tomorrow, the more traditional Canyon Chasers bike review video coming out. But we have time with the podcast to go through the presentation with an engineer here to go through everything that's changed on the R7. So a deep dive, if you will, on this brand new motorcycle.
I have 40 pages of PowerPoint for you.
It's 40 pages. And it's really cool. It was really fun talking to them. They interviewed riders. Yamaha, here's going to be the gist of the main video, if you haven't watched it or whenever you're watching this, is that Yamaha went to great lengths to listen to the audience, listen to who's been buying the R7, and addressed the feedback in a very tangible way. And I think it's really exciting.
So I want to start. This is my favorite slide. So we'll actually put these slides
up on the screen.
So you don't have to stare at my little piece of paper here. The slide we're going to look at right now is showing the sales performance, basically, of these motorcycles going back from 2000 all the way to 2020.
Yeah, they call them their R line, which would be the R1, R6, R9, R7, R3.
Yeah. So this graph isn't showing the R7 yet. It's the R1, R6, and R3. And there is a insane drop right at 2009. So basically the financial crisis, right, that we dealt with, where you saw this sort of fairly steady incline and rise of R1s and R6s for sale. And then the financial crisis happened and it doesn't drop, it falls off a cliff.
It falls off. Because if you look at the number of R6s they sold in 2008, what is it? It's 26,000 units.
Over that, closer to 30.
30,000 R6s in a single year.
Yeah.
That's more than the entire sport bike market in America right now.
Yep.
Of just R6s.
Yep.
And when I asked Yamaha about this on the ground, they were, at that time, the buyer wanted the best of the best regardless of cost.
Yep.
And that's what the R6 turned into. You raced an R6 that had a built motor in it. It was putting out an insane horsepower number.
I've raced several R6s, actually. I've had a couple of them. It was the most razor's edge of a 600 you could get.
It was 150 horsepower.
Oh, yeah.
Or something like
mine
that.
was 140, which was insane.
It's insane. Out of a 600cc, that's more than my Multistrada was putting out at the time, which is nuts.
And they're phenomenal track bikes.
They are hateful to ride on the road.
I think they're basically useless on the street for the most part. They don't do any of the things you need a street bike to do.
But you in the audience, if you owned an R6, leave a comment right now. And because there's a good chance you probably owned an R6. Most of us have owned an R6 at some point.
They're still well-renowned. If you go to club racing right now, you will still go see R6s from that era.
But if you look at this chart now, what floors me is right now they sell more R3s than R1s.
And it's not even close.
It's by a lot.
It's not even close.
Yeah.
as soon as the R3 showed up, that thing shot up. Within its first year, it was selling more than the R6 and the R1 in its first year in volume. Now, again, these are cheaper bikes, of course, so they're going to sell at higher numbers, you'd think. But it did have a massive impact on the age of an R buyer.
Right. Yeah.
So the R3 and the R7 have brought that average age of an Yamaha R bike buyer down by almost 10 years.
Which is incredible because we talk a lot about, the average age of the average motorcyclist is like in the 40s now. And the freaking R7 and R3 brought that into the 30s, and which is by itself. So talking to Yamaha, not only is the R7 and R3, like it's one of their most important models. Yamaha told me that the R7 is their best-selling motorcycle, not their best-selling street bike, not their best-selling sport bike, but their best-selling motorcycle. It outsells all of their dirt bikes, which is remarkable.
Is insane when you think about, and I don't know if this is like this everywhere in the US, but here in Utah, when you say motorcycle, everyone thinks dirt bike.
Right.
That's what people see
in America.
Here.
In America as a whole, it's always the dirt bikes outsell the street bikes by a big margin.
But it does seem like this R7 is, and maybe I guess you can tease it a little bit, but it's very much built to solve a certain target demographic, right? It is trying to be the Goldilocks sweet spot bike.
Right.
It's a bit bigger than the R3, which is sort of treated as like the smaller person or entry-level bike. It's not quite the R9 or the R1, which are much more racy, a little more expensive, kind of more at the upper end. It's this general street sport bike, this R7, and that's really what it tries to be, and it does it for less than 10 grand.
Right. The other interesting thing too was, in their like their little like interviewing the average buyer, what a woman rider wanted and what a male rider wanted. Mm-hmm. And women riders were more interested in like 3 to 4 to 500 cc motorcycles. Men talked about they like to ride more aggressively. They really liked but everybody, both demographics, really liked the look of a sport bike.
Yeah.
Right. And what I've seen, and like the data kind of showed it too, is a lot of people buying a bike now are kind of realizing they don't necessarily need or want a 180 horsepower super bike. They want something that's a little bit more livable. Yeah. And Yamaha delivered with this R7. But the R7, like, I don't know, did you ride the first gen R7? I spent a fair bit of time on them. It had some flaws. Like, I was never really in love with it.
I thought that, so my wife rides an RS660 and she doesn't ride an R7 because I thought the RS660 was a better bike, a better chassis, a better engine, all that stuff was better. The R7 felt very wet noodle.
Yeah. Yeah, it to me, if I were to call it, I felt like the R7 was the MT-07 with a bodywork kit on it.
Yeah.
It was a little soft, a little wallowy. It wasn't what I wanted a sport bike to be. It was, I'd rather have the MT-07.
Yeah. Yeah. But it sounds like they've kind of addressed that too. There's a piece in here where they talk about the chassis. Let me see if I can find the right slide here.
Yeah, it's a completely new chassis. So my experience with the Gen 1 R7 was you could really feel the flex is breaking into corners. You could feel the whole chassis just kind of like do this lateral twist thing. Mm-hmm. That under braking, it just wasn't where I wanted a little bike to be. And riding this new R7, completely different. The chassis is really good.
So they have in here, we're nerding out here, by the way. Right. So if this isn't your thing, I'm sorry, but you're all along for the ride now.
Or you can go watch the shorter, more succinct video on the other.
Skip ahead, they go, the other times you've gone and done these types of press releases, I don't think they've ever given you this type of detail.
No, they never give you this. They usually give me sales numbers or, we changed this or we fixed the programming, or even if it's a new motorcycle, they'll give you like a little bit of the market research. Yeah. This has been the most complete packet anybody has ever sent me.
So they have a whole section here just on the frame. And they're talking about the seat frame section is 10 millimeters wider on each side. And the pipe tube diameter is 3 millimeters thicker.
And 3 millimeters thicker on the pipe tube diameter is a big deal.
It is a ton, actually.
It's a lot.
But
they changed the material too, right? Some of the materials.
It's a higher tensile steel, yeah.
So,
but it's funny how much they're not just saying, because they have a line in here, they're like, oh, it's 12% stiffer torsionally and longitudinally or whatever. But then they explain how they went about that, right? It was, oh, well, we made the diameter thicker and we adjusted the spacing on these spars and all of that to get this frame that is more rigid, like it probably should have been in the first place, or at least they've learned anyway.
Right. Or based on who's actually buying it, right?
Yeah.
Like
the feedback they got.
Yeah.
But they talk about that. They talk about the swing arm is different. It's also more rigid.
They changed how you adjust the chain slack.
Mm-hmm.
And one cool thing about how they did it is it looks to me, it would give you more range of adjustment if you are racing it or track daying it where you might be changing your gearing more frequently. There's a wider range of adjustment in the swing arm. And the swing arm itself, like, I couldn't pinpoint if the swing arm was stronger or not, but the whole bike was better. But the swing arm certainly looks more robust.
A little more beefy.
Yeah. And it looks good. It looks like a swing arm that would come off of a bigger bike.
And that was one of the, when guys would take previously the first gen of an R7 and prep it for racing, I believe there was something that they would do that was fairly substantial to either the shock mount bracket or to the linkage for the shock. One of the two, I can't remember which it was, in order to basically adjust the way it sits and adjust the kind of the stiffness of the whole thing. I don't know that they've totally solved that, but they've definitely addressed it. Like some of these things that they're pointing out here, they have addressed. The linkage and the swing arm and the pivot is stiffer.
Yeah, in the conversations with them, they did change the shock linkage and they did change the whole rear shock, I believe. At least the valving inside the shock. Now, the rear shock does not come with compression damping. It only has preload and rebound. But they also spruced up the forks. They went from steel damper rods to aluminum damper rods. Not damper rods, damping...
Cartridge,
yeah. Damper rods is old school. But they lightened the fork and changed the valving in the fork. I think they lightened the lighter spring rates in the fork to make it more compliant. Boy, you felt that right away. It was much easier to kind of feel what the front tire was doing. It made the handling a lot more intuitive. Like you just got better feedback, I guess is how you would say it.
Well, and in reality, if you're going to take a bike, all right, so if you're making a Japanese bike, if someone wants to be truly performance oriented, in terms of handling, the first thing they're going to do is replace the shock anyway.
Right.
That's the cheapest, easiest thing that makes the biggest difference is the shock. So if I'm going to give Yamaha instructions, I'm going to tell you, hey, if you're going to cheap out somewhere, maybe you don't go crazy on the shock because I'm going to replace it anyway.
Right. They actually asked me about that flat out, and I said, I would rather you put that money into a better fork.
Yeah.
Because replacing a shock is pretty easy.
Pretty normal, really.
And honestly, I think... Well, with the exception of the Aprilia, I've replaced the rear shock on every track bike I've had.
It's normal. They're not that crazy expensive.
It's not that big of an investment.
And the ROI is huge.
And it's like, basically, it's typically 2 bolts and maybe an hour in the garage and you can swap it. It's not, whereas putting in cartridges in a fork or revalving a fork, depending on if you have a suspension guy nearby or if you know, if you're buddies with Fuzzy Moto, that can turn into a real hassle to deal with trying to fix a fork. So I'd rather they put that money into the fork anyway.
They also have done a couple of clever things. Can you talk a little bit about this spin forged wheel? Oh, sounds cool.
I sure gave them. Nobody else was asking about the spin forged wheel. Apparently, this is on every bike I own. If I can, I put forged wheels on it because lighter wheels are one of the greatest upgrades you can make to any motorcycle. And rather than put on a pipe or a power commander or an up map or whatever the case may be, throw money at lighter wheels because it solves so many problems. Even before you buy a shock, if possible, because a lighter wheel, the suspension works less. So Yamaha in this press kit, they're making a big deal about, we're running spin forged wheels. So I get there and we're having our little meeting and I'm like, please explain to me spin forged wheels. Yeah. And so like an engineer from the back has to come forward and they're like, we don't really know. He's going to answer your question, right? And the engineer comes up and he goes, oh, so we take like the cast wheel, and while it's still hot, we put it in this machine that spins it really fast, but on the outer rim of the wheel, we press on it with these like spinning roller bearings to forge the outer perimeter of the wheel. So you get fewer inclusions. You're basically forging where the tire sits with it. So it allows it to be thinner, lighter, and stronger. And so I think they said that it's a 4%.
I think it says 4%.
4% reduction in weight. But he goes, but that reduction in weight is all at the perimeter of the wheel where it makes the biggest difference.
Like on the rim itself.
On the rim itself, not necessarily in the hub. So your it's called the moment of inertia, right? How much energy it takes to spin a wheel up or to slow it down or to get it to change direction. You're making the biggest effect where it makes the most difference. And I mean, I didn't get to ride the old R7 with the new R7 back to back. That would have been kind of fun to see the difference. But yeah, it tipped in really nice, you know.
I'm not trying to sound like a Yamaha ad. We're just trying to share with you the information that we've gotten.
Yeah, and I'm telling you my experience of riding the thing. So things that matter to me are going to be lighter wheels, better suspension, stronger frame, you know.
One of the things that typically falls down on budget-oriented motorcycles is the transmission.
Right.
Typically on cheaper bikes, so I've owned plenty of cheaper bikes, like
we all have
Kawasaki 400, or
I campaigned an SV650. Do we want to talk about clunky transmission?
And typically where they tend to go cheap, because it doesn't ever hit any of the spec sheets, is the transmission itself. Right? It doesn't shift very smoothly, or if it does, it's very clunky. It pops out of gear sometimes. Like it's just built to a price point. So they've addressed some of those things, which I think is interesting. So again, we're way down the nerdy rabbit hole here, so stick with us for a second. But on some of the gears right now, they typically had 5 drive dogs, which, if you're not familiar with how the transmission works, the gears are a constant mesh, meaning the gear splines, the teeth on the gears are always engaged no matter what you do. They never stop being engaged. It's more a matter of the shift forks and the dogs telling the power which gear to travel through.
Yeah, it looks like a little zigzag pattern, right? Because you have the engine turns this gear, but turns all these other gears, but the ones that are actually turning, it'll come across and down and over and out to the final drive. And you move the shift dog and they'll slide side to side. And so even though they're all still in mesh, it changes which ratio is actually driving the final drive. Yeah,
exactly. So which ones are actually pushing?
And the dogs are like these little, I don't know, they look like the tops of a castle on a building that kind of interlock with each other.
Yeah, and it's on the face of the gear.
Right.
And so that's what the little shift, anyway, those dogs, funny enough, we're doing a terrible job explaining these. You can find photos of them, but that actually is what you're feeling typically when you feel like a rough shift or a smooth shift, or if it shifts easily
they'll
or roughly.
Bounce off of each other.
Yeah, or they'll like pop, 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 and then finally slam together. Right. So what they went from was a 5 to a 6 dog design, which means basically the transmission has to spin less before it gets to the next opening where they can lock in together.
Yeah, if you ride bicycles and you think about the rear cassette on your bicycle, sometimes they'll talk about the number of pawls or the number of little drive wheels in that rear hub. The more drive wheels, there's just less slop in between. The engagement happens sooner. So from 5 to 6 is a significant increase in that engagement. So it's just more precise and quicker.
But the fact that they're spending the time to think about, well, how many dogs should we put on these faces? It's more expensive, obviously, to put 6 on there than 5. So they're spending money to improve the transmission. But there's other things, too, that they're doing to try to make that transmission feel more quality and feel more smooth and more polished. Now, granted, typically Japanese bikes have pretty dang good transmissions, full stop. Even the lower price point ones still have a pretty good transmission. But anything that helps the shift feel better, because I find that more novice riders tend to not, the term I like to use is called mechanical sympathy, right? They don't have as much mechanical sympathy. They don't quite understand what's even happening internally. So they go, oh, well, I clicked a shift and it popped right back out. It's like, well, did you make it shift or did you like tap the thing to shift? And sometimes just the way you give it the input can make all the difference.
Right. Or your technique as a newer rider might not be as refined.
Yeah.
And so your timing might be off, right? You lifted on the lever before the clutch was fully into that released position. And so like all of these things kind of help overcome that, as well as, I mean, that's the beauty of, I mean, that's what you're paying for with a higher end anything, right? Is that it just makes it function better, right? Think of a cheap zipper on some crappy, low grade Walmart shirt versus like something that comes with a nice high end YKK zipper.
Yeah.
It'd be the same thing. It's just going to withstand abuse better. It'll work better. Normally it'll last longer. And I was really impressed riding this thing. It has an up and down Quickshifter. The upshift I thought was as good as any upshift I've ever used on any quick-shifting motorcycle. The downshift still left a little bit to be desired. It was a little bit higher effort. The auto-blip wasn't quite as good. And riding at a really, really high level, because I was trying to keep up with like the really high-level moto journalist guys on roads they ride all the time and roads I had never been on before.
Right.
I found I could still do the half clutch downshift a little bit better than their auto blip downshift.
Yeah.
But that's like at a very high level. Riding at a much more sane pace, the auto blip downshift was really good.
Yeah.
It was really, really good.
So quick shifters, I think, are fairly easy. As long as you're on the power, a quick shifter is pretty reliable. An upshift is pretty reliable.
Right.
The downshift, though, my experience anyway, it tends to do a much better job of auto-blipping when you're already kind of higher up in the revs.
Right.
And I wonder too, like this bike only revs to 10 or 10.5 or something. Right. I wonder if that's a factor, just the fact that it's a twin, so it's a lower revving engine no matter what, if that means it's just harder to get it to be really smooth for the auto blip on the downshift. Typically,
I would agree with you, but I think where I had the most problems with the auto blip was when I was in the higher revs. And it could be, and I don't, I could maybe send an email to Yamaha and ask them, but it could be that they timed the quick shifter and the auto blipper to be where most street riders are spending their time in the RPMs. So maybe by me relying on it when I was into that like kind of 8/10, 9/10 riding pace was outside of how it was designed to really operate.
Yeah.
To me, it wasn't really a complaint. I wouldn't even really criticize it, but it's worth mentioning. But the upshift was exceptional, especially for a sub $10,000 bike.
Yeah.
It was bonkers good. There was a section where we're just trying to get back to the hotel, and California has lane splitting, and there's 10 moto journalists, and we're all a little bit idiots, right? So we're just like, it's legal. We're lane splitting up to the front, but as soon as the light turns green, we go, right? And we're just launching out of there. And so it's like full throttle, like whack, 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 whack. It was so fun, like how good the upshifter worked, like just launching out of traffic, which I think is probably how the bike legitimately will be used.
Funny enough, when you're riding in traffic in a city, your like 0 to 60 miles an hour number actually matters quite a bit.
Yeah.
Because it gets you out of a lot of jams.
Yeah, it gets you out of trouble.
Yeah.
And again, this little parallel twin, this is something else about the bike that I was really enamored with. I get to ride the big super bikes. I own a big super bike. You own a big super bike. This R7, where the last R7, I didn't really feel this way about it. It seemed to really balance the whole power performance package really beautifully. It never felt overpowered. It never felt underpowered. It was a really, really like well-rounded, fun sport bike. Even like the very first time I'm on the bike, we get on the thing and we're heading out towards Palomar Mountain in San Diego. And I'm just riding the thing going, I forgot how much I just love sport bikes. Like this thing is so cool. I feel cool. The bike looks really good. I was on the Champions edition. The red and white is the one I got handed. And it's a cool motorcycle. And it reminded me when I was new to motorcycles, my first like proper motorcycle was an FZR 600. Now back in the day, the FZR 400 was the race bike, and the FZR 750 was the homologated World Superbike bike. So the 600 was kind of the same thing as the R7 today. I toured on it. I went to class on it. I did my first track day on it.
Yeah.
It had to be this do-all, do-everything that looked like what I wanted a motorcycle to look like. And I know I'm dating myself, like many of you maybe never even heard of an FCR 600, but I immediately had this fondness for this R7 because it reminded me of that time in my life when I could only own one motorcycle and it needed to look like what I wanted it to look like, and it needed to do anything I threw at it. And the R7 was doing it really much better than the first version of it.
On the Yamaha R lineup, the R7, even before the refresh, was the best looking one.
Oh, I agree. Yeah.
Just super sleek. It didn't have wings and angles and things all over the place for no reason. It looked very sport bike, very proper, but clean.
When you look at it, especially the blue one, looking at it in a glance, you'd see it in the corner of your eye, you'd be walking by it. They completely revised the face of it, and I think it looks really good, the face. But you would walk by it at a glance, and it looked a lot like the V4 GP bike. Mm-hmm. It had the same lines. Even the shape of the tail had that whole little like mass damper kind of vibe to it. The shape of the face, the whole thing. I mean, it looks 100% legit, which is, if you're new into motorcycles and you're like, I want a sport bike, it's hard to overlook this one.
When I first got into bikes, I bought a sport bike because I wanted it to look a certain way. I wanted it to look fast and look like a sport bike. This thing does, I mean, it does the job, right? For sure, it looks good. There's a few other cool little tricks on here I want to point out since we got everybody. They've got a great little photo here showing how to switch this thing from standard to GP shift.
They built it right into it.
It's the most brilliant. If you're not a track rider, so we refer to GP shift. Basically, all you're doing is you're turning the shift pattern upside down. And the reason we do that, one, it's cool.
It's faster. When you're coming out of a corner, you don't have to try to get your foot underneath the lever.
You're pushing down is all.
It's just quicker.
Yeah. So but the real reason why it's called GP shift is way back in the day on the 125 and 250 two-strokes, if you're going through a long sweeping left-hander and you're accelerating throughout the corner, you'd get to the top of the gear. And so rather than sneaking your toe under the shifter to click up, you could just lift the bike a bit, push down, and lean back in again and get the next gear. That's why they refer to it as GP shift. That's all it is. But it's just reversing the shift pattern. Normally, that's like sliding it off, like loosening the thing off the splines and switching it back over onto the shift shaft.
Or you got to buy a whole new shift lever.
Or a different shift lever.
Or you got to change the Quickshifter mechanism or change some wiring.
And mechanically, that's not hard. That's flopping over the knuckle. That's not hard, but it would screw up now with the up and down quick shift because now you're sending the inverse signal.
It's a push or a pull signal.
Yeah. Basically, instead of having to flip the knuckle around, you actually just unbolt it from one side of the shift lever to the other side of the pivot and bolt it back on.
It maintains the same ratios. It maintains the same where your shift lever is positioned on your boot stays the same.
This is how they all should be done.
This is how they all should be. I agree.
This is way more clever.
Not that hard, right?
Yeah. So anyway, kudos to Yamaha. That I think is one of your cleverest moves on this thing. We'll talk just a minute about this.
It went for a full 6-axis IMU.
Yeah.
Full 6-axis IMU with their upgraded fly-by-wire throttle system in it. Which again, we talked about this last podcast. I don't think, even not knowing this was coming, that software is a really easy way to upgrade a motorcycle affordably. Yeah. And this is apparently what Yamaha has done with this, the fancier IMU and the better fly-by-wire.
Yeah. Like, what Dave's getting at is forged magnesium wheels aren't going to get cheaper with time.
They're going to get probably more expensive.
Some of these things, even though we know that it's a better option, there isn't really a way to make it a cheaper option ever over time. Electronics and software in general absolutely gets cheaper over time. Like, go look at an 80-inch TV from 5 years ago versus now. It's like a third the price, if not less. So technology gets cheaper over time, which is good for all of us in that regard. But now you're getting a sub $10,000 entry-ish mid-level motorcycle that has TC, slide control, lift control, brake control, up and down quick shifter, engine brake management, slip regulator, like launch control. The amount of functionality that this thing has built into it is bananas compared to what was available even 5 years ago on a proper full-on like an R1.
Right.
So it's really cool what they've done, and all this stuff just gets better and better integrated over time.
Yeah, and Yamaha lets you use their little app thing. You can put the GPS on the screen. They give you like, and they're all doing this now. They give you like, you can choose what the gauge looks like, which I think is really nice.
Yeah.
I got to throw out there, Theme 3 dark mode has to be the prettiest gauge. I tried over and over and over again to capture it on camara. You're going to have to believe me if you buy one or if you go into a dealership, put it into Theme 3 dark mode. It's the prettiest gauge configuration I've seen on any motorcycle ever. And I asked Yamaha about that because the guy was there, and he goes, yeah, I was inspired by the music notes of a piano, and I wanted it to come, and it's so pretty. So yeah, nice little touch.
I love that. I feel like we're giving away like cheat codes to a video game right now. Like Theme 3, guys, dark mode. That's the
Theme 3 dark mode, because you can set it in permanent dark mode, not to just switch light to dark, which I love when they let you switch it.
I wish our Aprilias did that.
Yeah, I know. I love that Honda lets you do it. I think it's like, just let me choose what.
Yeah.
I think dark mode's easier on your eyes. It's easier to see at a glance because the numbers are white.
There's a bunch in here about phone connectivity. I'm going to be totally honest. I just don't give a damn about phone connectivity.
Yeah, but I think like it's not that important to me, but looking at who's buying this motorcycle, right? Like it's geared for someone in their late 20s, early 30s. They're far more comfortable with this like connectivity and tying it with their phone, the interactivity. It works really well. I did get to play with it. And I love that they're listening to their audience, right? That this is who's buying this bike. We're going to throw these features into this motorcycle because that's what our test group said they wanted. Thank you for listening to us.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. I think the phone connectivity thing that I think is nice is the maps view. I think that makes all the sense. I don't need to see
text messages from Brad showing me his sandwich. I don't care.
Yeah, the map makes tons of sense. The communication to the bike, what do they call that? Like the pit communication?
Oh, it's a Y race, I think is what it's called.
So they have this cool Y race where, so let's say Dave is out racing and I'm his team manager. I can be in the pits on the Yamaha app, and I can send you like a pit this lap note
it's like
or yellow
cute.
Flag or
box,
whatever.
Box.
Yeah.
Push.
Yeah, I can send
yellow
you
flag, turn 3 or whatever.
A bunch of different messages.
There's like, I think there's like 20 of them, 20 different preset messages you can send.
Again, if you're not a track rider, probably not that valuable to you.
Josh Hayes was there, and he's like, we used this when I was racing this motorcycle, and it works really well.
So neat feature. I love that they spent, again, comes back to the software thing where software is fairly cheap to enhance over time. This is a really sweet feature for a niche audience, and they're going to really appreciate it.
Right.
So I think it's cool.
And unlike what some other brands are doing, there's no subscription for any of this stuff. They're just giving it to you, which I really appreciate that too.
All right. So the last thing we're going to talk about on this bike is the paint schemes.
4 paint options.
A blue one, a black one. So the blue one is Yamaha Team Blue. The black one's Raven. There's a white, red, and black 70th anniversary edition.
That's the one that I rode. I was very excited that was the key they handed me.
Dave would say that he is well chuffed.
I was well chuffed by that.
White, red, and black.
Oh, I loved it. The champions, the squares. If you're not familiar with the Yamaha, the race squares, it's a big part of like Yamaha heritage racing. Like everyone's like, why are there squares all over my motorcycle? Because it's cool. Because it's racy.
This last version, and I'm not going to give you the name of it. Dave calls it the Miami Vice Edition.
I called it the Miami Vice Edition. Yamaha wasn't real thrilled that I called it that, but by the end of the day, everybody was calling it the Miami Vice.
I want to hear what you guys think this thing is, because I've got a couple other names for it, but I'm not going to give them away just yet. We'll do that on the next episode. No, don't give it away, Dave.
Give it away. I loved it. I loved that they took the chances with this turquoise, yellow, purple, yellow wheels. Oh my gosh.
The yellow wheels are
so
fun.
Exhausted of black wheels. I am so done with black wheels. I'm so stoked they gave us, well, the blue one gets blue wheels. The
black gets black wheels.
The black one gets black.
I feel like we're talking Power Rangers right now.
I think, I know, I love color. I think the Champions Edition, the 70th anniversary, should have got gold wheels or like a bronze wheel.
Well, something, not just black.
I know. I'm so tired of black wheels. But the yellow wheels.
This color edition we're talking about right now, the crazy edition, what is the name of this color scheme?
Right.
That's what I want to know.
It's not called the Miami Vice color scheme. They gave it a name. It's better than my name. But like,
I want to know what you want to call it. Let's hear what you think.
Yeah. That'd be a great feedback. What should we call the yellow wheel edition?
All right. Anything else on the R7 we got to cover?
No. We went deep dive on the R7. I hope you guys are okay with that. I thought it was fun to go through the 40 PowerPoint slides.
Yeah.
I love that Yamaha really listened. They made all of these changes based on rider feedback, and more companies need to do that.
So the R7 is sub $10,000.
Which is incredible.
It is a 700 twin. It makes about 70 horsepower, something like that.
Yeah, Yamaha don't release horsepower numbers, so
we're going to call it 75.
Seems fair.
Fairly lightweight, extremely
417 pounds, I think, is wet.
Yeah, extremely gettable. This is not. This is an
dealer
affordable
network.
bike.
Yeah.
All right. In the world of motorcycle racing, right now we have a problem. Entry-level bikes, we have this gigantic chasm between an Ovale 190, which is a cheap little kind of mini bike. Cheap's a nice word to say. It's like 10 grand. They're not cheap.
Right.
But they're proper little bikes, but they're cool. And then to get to kind of the next step, which is like a Moto 4-esque bike, which is just below what Moto 3 runs, those things are like $25,000 now.
Right.
So this chasm. But when you get to that Moto 3 level, you're still talking a single cylinder 250 that makes maybe 70 horsepower at best, probably less. But it's tuned up here, let's just say.
So the reliability goes down when you tune them to that level.
The cost of running one of those things is outrageous.
It's not like the old school two-strokes where you would just change the rev.
And that used to be the thing, was a 125 two-stroke was dead cheap, and they would run, like you could just get new pistons and stuff and just keep them going. It was cheap to get a new rider up to speed. I contest, and MotoGP is doing this. They are dropping the Moto 3 class. They haven't officially announced this, but they're dropping the Moto 3 class in a couple of years. They haven't said when. Probably 28 is my guess. And they're going to put an R7 engine in those bikes. And then it's a spec engine with different chassis. In Moto America, their junior cup is this Kramer 350. I love the brand Kramer.
Me too.
I may go buy one at some point. I may own a Kramer.
The 890 Kramer is
I love it.
Good. Yeah.
But it is a boutique bike.
$30,000
to $50,000.
Yeah, depending on how you spec it out.
It is a boutique track bike manufacturer for dentists. That's what they are. And I don't fault them for that. I love them for that, in fact, because it's a cool thing.
You got to survive.
I want that.
Yeah.
Right? They are not the right brand to be making the Junior Cup bike. They sell a 350. They sell a bike with a 350 KTM engine in it for like $26,000. And our junior series in America right now, this year in 2026, is laughable. Not because the riders are bad, not because Moto America is bad, because they've made this leap sort of unattainable for so many kids.
And families, and kids can sometimes be flaky.
But what are we doing here? Why haven't we partnered with Yamaha Moto America and said, hey, we want to do a spec R7 class for kids.
Right.
For juniors.
I couldn't agree more.
Put them all, Yamaha's got bucks. They want to sell the heck out of R7s. Let's have them back it. Why are these kids not showing up on bone stock R7 engines with some suspension work and just let them ride? That's what the junior class should be, is a bunch of $10,000 R7s that Yamaha is supporting the class of. Get these kids out there for sub $10,000. I promise you're not going to have 10 kids on the grid. You're going to have 30 kids on the grid.
And it may sound like I was gushing on the R7 this whole time, and to a certain extent I really was. But part of that was I can't not look at this thing and look at it as this amazing little track platform. GP Shift is built right into it. Comes with lighter wheels. It has a stout little frame, adjustable suspension, up and down Quickshifter right out of the box, right? You have the little pit board thing on your gauge, right? It has all of these things. Now, okay, let's say Moto 3 starts running the R7 as their platform. You know, every kid in the world is going to know that and think my R7 is closer in DNA to MotoGP than anything else out there. That is so cool. You want to build excitement on growing our sport? Heck yeah.
I just can't believe we can't organize well enough to get Yamaha on board, get Moto America on board.
Or anybody else. Like if Honda, Suzuki, Kawasaki wants to build something in this same class.
Yeah, totally.
This thing, like, please do.
Yeah.
You know?
But give these kids a place to go race and show who has talent and not make it be, oh, well, you don't have, mom and dad don't own a dealership. Mom and dad don't own a this. Like, make it so it's a reasonable thing that's a talent cup, not a mom and dad budget cup.
Right. Oh my gosh. And honestly, like you think like the parallel twin, 700cc, 70 horsepower, that's a good size. That's going to transition up to like bigger, more powerful bikes really well. It's not overwhelming. You know, riding this thing, I spent an obscene amount of money on an SV650 trying to turn it into what this R7 is out of the box. I put forks on it. I put a shock. I rebuilt the engine to try to get it closer to what this thing is putting out of the box. Right. You know? And this thing just comes with it.
Just shows up that way.
Just shows up that, and it looks great.
Yeah.
It looks fantastic.
Now I'm sort of gushing over the R7, right? The reality is like my wife owns an RS660, which is
we love the 660.
Direct competitor. I think for her use case and for what she's doing right now, that's actually the better bike for her. But I wouldn't try to go to Aprilia and say, hey, you should supply our RS660s for a spec series. Aprilia is this big.
Right. They're so small.
No, I want a Yamaha R7 spec series. That's actually what I want.
I'm not lying. When I was riding that thing and we were riding it on the street, I couldn't stop thinking I would love to have this thing as like a little track toy. Yeah. This thing would be like I built my wife the KTM RC390 and I put way too much money into it. Had this thing existed, I would have just grabbed one of these.
It's a better option.
Probably still probably would have kept her entertained on the track for longer. Yeah. And then if not, I would have been happy to be out there on it. Yeah. This thing is especially, you know, I did ORP last year. I did a bunch of other smaller tracks. Our track is big. Our track is very leader bike.
We have a horsepower track, yeah.
Right. But every other track, I was thinking, you know, like if I go back to our ORP, I want to be on an R7. That thing would be so phenomenal on the average racetrack. Yeah. Where, you know, I rode the KTM RC9RC, whatever the brand new one is. I rode that thing like 2 weeks ago. I rode the R9 a couple weeks ago. The R7 would be more fun on most of these tracks because it's a little bit lower horsepower, because it's a little bit more balanced, and you're not giving up much on brake, suspension, chassis, and all the other stuff that actually really matters.
Yeah, I think that kind of covers it for today. We're again, this is gonna release. Obviously, you'll know about because you're watching this.
Is it a day late, and I'm sorry for it, but we can't release anything on April 1st because nobody believes. I made this mistake once. I did a really excellent riding technique video that challenged one of the main thoughts in how we ride, and I foolishly dropped it on April 1st. And
therefore it was a lie.
And therefore it was a lie. Because April 1st apparently is the only day of the year that people think critically about what they read on the internet. So this is going out after that.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Have a good week.
All right. See you next week.